So hello everyone. As always, my name is Victoria, and today is the last workshop of the Uprooted workshop series. Yeah, or even like sad phase, or like we're really happy. Like for me, I'm like both sad and happy because I know like our winter Christmas is coming, but I'm really sad because I really enjoyed being in this class with you guys and getting to know each and every one of you as well. So at the end, I'll do my farewells and hopefully see you soon. But for now, say thank you everyone for being here and for continuing to come to these workshops. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, so before we talk about self-care today, I wanted to first, again, for the last time, talk about the Uprooted series. So today we actually have our facilitator of the Uprooted series. His name is Tyler. He is currently in the Zoom room right now. I invited him here today to talk to you about the Uprooted series, to answer any questions that you have about the course content as well. So Tyler, would you like to?
Yeah, happily. Thank you so much, Victoria, for introducing me. So my name is Tyler. I am the sort of organizer of the Uprooted U program. This is going to be the third time that we're going through the course this year, and basically what the Uprooted U program does is to provide a sort of equivalent level university and college introduction course that usually focuses on questions surrounding forms of migration, that also will appeal to folks who are like just coming to Canada for the first time and want to be involved in like university work and college level work, and maybe are also thinking about forms of professional development. So we try to service all of those things in a course that basically looks almost exactly like what you would get in a Canadian university in a social science program, basically anywhere around the country that you could see or find. This includes things like assigning readings and working through classroom discussion, and also preparing and completing assignments. But because it's also usually highly requested, we've worked on both things like academic and professional skill building to sort of complement these things. So we do a lot of like reading and writing help. And we also like open space to talk about things like resumes and cover letters. So for university level work, this is a really important thing that a lot of people have to go through. And we really appreciate being able to sort of take the time to be able to talk about these things with whoever is willing to participate. So you get a really good mixture. We talk about, say, the conditions of labor in Canada and what a person can generally expect as a newcomer to Canada when they're part of a new labor force. But also we talk about how you can put together a really nice resume and what kinds of places you can go to sort of like submit that resume in hopes that you can get a job. Usually it's a really good mix of those kinds of things. I think that's all I really wanted to cover here. I didn't know if anybody had any questions. Yeah.
So after doing all of this, if we needed like a letter, could we ask you as well?
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the great things that we've been working on with the course is, on the one hand, if you complete it and you've submitted your assignments and you're part of classroom discussions for all 9 weeks that we're running, then there's a certificate at the end. And usually on that day at the end, I announce to everyone, like, I'd be really happy to write anyone who needed it a reference. So I'm really happy to do those things. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's also like the way that the course is organized, usually it places a real demand in front of people. Like the readings that you're expected to read are usually around 10 or 20 pages, which can be a lot for a single week. But we also really work hard to make sure that the space of the class is accessible. And if people aren't able to do the readings for a single week, like there's not, you're not going to be like thrown out of the course. That's never really a problem. It's just a place that we can do some really interesting work and, cover some really interesting topics and have really meaningful discussion about these things that are you're probably already really thinking about. Did anybody have any other questions? Okay, thank you so much, Victoria.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that great introduction to the program. So yeah, now that you know a little bit more coming from Tyler, once again, I'll send an email anyways with the link if you want to register. If you haven't registered yet, it'll be definitely a great time, and it's a great course, and we have a lot of great plans for everyone who's registered. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all once again in the new year. Thank you so much, Tyler, for doing that. Okay, so let's get started. So I hope there's going to be a lot of talking. There's going to be some writing as well. So if you have a paper and a pen or a pencil, you can get that. Or if you want, you could use your phone. I'll be asking you some questions and asking you to write a few things down. So if you wanted to get that, I know Zane just left. So if you wanted to get that, I'll give you like a minute to get paper or a pen or anything like that. Use your computer too. I'll give you a minute. In the meantime, as if anyone's like getting their paper or pen, I wanted to ask, what does self-care mean to you? So you can take a moment to think about that, where you first heard these words and how you feel about them. You can take a moment to think. Awesome. Okay, I see Zane is back. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to go grab some. Okay. So so going with the first question, you can say this verbally, you don't have to write it down. So what does self-care mean to you? Everyone has a different definition of self-care and what that looks like to them. So I really wanted to know from your perspective and your opinion, what it means to you. So if anyone's open to share, you can turn on your mics for a bit and share what self-care means to you.
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, for me, based on my experience, I was working in the chronic disease area, so I was specialized in diabetes.
Mhm.
So self-care from my perspective is about how to manage yourself to be well-being.
Mhm.
Or I saw the journey of the diabetes,
Mhm.
and it started since the first moment of truth when you realize that you are now a diabetic person,
Mhm.
not a disease. It's something you have to live with.
Mhm.
So when self-care comes in front of me now, I remember this disease area and how you have to manage yourself in everything. Not easy at all. Maybe it's easy from talking, but when you are close to someone uh, that have these circumstances, you will know how self-care is so important.
Mhm.
This from my perspective.
For me, it means a series of measurements that you take about yourself in regard health issues, in regard just protection, like to how to care about your yourself, your kids, your self care for humans, so
Mhm.
protection measurements.
Yeah, thank you both so much for sharing. I think, like everyone's, term or everyone's definition of self-care is definitely different. And what you both added to the conversation is so extremely important. So thank you so much for that. Sylvia, I see you have your little hand up.
To me, self-care, I term it as a practice of someone taking a role in their own on well-being and happiness. That's how I take it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Oftentimes, when we hear self-care, you always think about like, what am I going to do for myself, for me to, for my well-being, especially finding out if I have some sort of, like what Dea was talking about, some sort of illness or anything like that. And it's like just taking those steps of taking care of yourself. Yeah, that's definitely it. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Does self-care mean to you?
Yeah, for me, actually, I think self-care means everything to me. It means everything to me because I believe if you cannot take care of yourself properly, so you will not be able to take care of your family, your job, your society. So it's starting from yourself. So that's why it's, I think, much important to take care of yourself, even if it is health issues or professional issues or social networks, whatever it is. But it should be taken care seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think you mentioned something so important, and it's like, it's taking care of yourself, but it's also like even those connections you have, your social network that you said, right? And I think, yeah, self-care, what happens is like, it's definitely something about yourself. And we're going to talk about this, but it also affects like the people around you, right? The way you present yourself, or the way when you're taking care of yourself, you're also like benefiting other people that are around you all the time. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Mesmi?
Okay, most of it is already said by the other participants. And to add something, the self-care means giving value to oneself with respect to health, just healthy feeding, and taking care of everything to oneself, making oneself ready. Or that issue, maybe it's about self-care.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. That's like a huge thing, taking care of yourself and providing value to yourself, right? And putting that extra step to, care for yourself, so then you could be at your most best in your life. Yeah. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Yeah. So self-care to me is in every aspect of your life, taking care of every area, because every area would help to give you a balance each day, as you know, in health and food and exercising, just doing overall, what it is that you need to have a balance in self and also the people around you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Alicia. I think the key thing that you said there was definitely about balance, right? It is definitely about balance. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, about, balance and what that means to everyone, because to everyone it's different, right? So thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else have any comments? I see, Mesfine, that your hand is still up. Do you have another comment? No. Okay, you took it down. Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. I really appreciate it. It's so important to just start the conversation, right? And see where everyone's perspective and get everyone's opinion. So if you ever have anything to say or anything to add, please feel free to raise up your hand or just speak up. Thank you. I have two other questions here, but I think everyone answered it in the way that encompassed these. So I'm just going to move on. Okay, so self-care. Why is self-care important? So everyone mentioned some very key points as to why it's important. And so I just wanted to add a little bit more, probably reiterate a lot of what everyone said. I have my notes here too. So oftentimes self-care is definitely about finding a middle way, right? It's definitely, so as I believe Alicia mentioned, it's, that balance. So it's definitely finding a middle way between the two extremes. Sometimes you want to rush to address everything. So like something comes at you, or there's like a bunch of different things happening. You want to rush to address it. You want to just get it over with, right? And there's also like the other extreme as well. So there's also, you want to rush, but then there's others who react in a way, they're burnt out and they just want to give up. It's just too overwhelming. I can't do this. I'm done. So there's definitely those two extremes when it comes to like self-care, or when it comes to when you're overwhelmed, or when you have a lot of things going on. And so I think what's really important to mention is that, it's easy to think that self-care is the last thing that we need, because the situation around us can feel so urgent. And oftentimes we don't have practice or time to practice self-care because it just seems so urgent, right? And then oftentimes we just want to like rush and like get everything done all at once. And so, like I said, it's definitely about finding that middle way. And that middle way looks different for every single person. So this workshop is definitely not going to be me telling you like, hey, you should do this, you should do that, blah, 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 blah. Like that's like would be from my perspective, in my opinion, what works for me. But self-care is definitely what works for you. What works for you, what works for your lifestyle, what works as you continue on this journey of your life. And so, self-care is also about like different ways that we could look after ourselves so that we could be more productive. And so just to go back, if you attended our previous workshop, we talked about time management. So that's a huge it's an example of like ways to be productive, right? And it could definitely be seen as a way, a self-care practice, managing your time effectively. And so it's definitely, time management is like a tool. It's used as a tool to be able to balance, self-care and then also being very productive, right? Because you don't want, like I said, off that balance and just burn out and give up and say, hey, this is my self-care, just giving up. Like, I mean, if that's what it looks like to you, okay, I can't judge you, but in general, a lot of people, when there's a lot of things going on, time management is really important as well, even as a part of your self-care practice. So self-care here, you see the point that I said here. Self-care is extremely important for one's physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental health. And so I wrote here, physically, self-care is important to fulfill our body's basic needs. So every single person, you all need to eat in a way that nourishes your body. You all need to drink enough water to stay hydrated, be able to sleep. However, I do understand that actually a lot of people do not have these privileges. They don't have a privilege to sleep full 8 hours a day. They don't have the privilege to have all the food that will nourish them, right? Because unfortunately, systemic poverty is very real, is extremely real. And so that's why I say self-care is it could be on a personal level as well. It depends on your situation. And so oftentimes, when it comes to, nourishing our bodies, there are a lot of things that are outside of our control, right? A lot of times we might not have access to these things that nourish our bodies. There's a lot of places that don't have access to clean water, that don't have clean water to stay hydrated, that don't have access to like healthy food, or don't have money to even buy the sometimes very expensive healthy food that's out there. And so it's in these instances, it's really important to acknowledge that some things aren't your fault, and there is much bigger forces and systems that you cannot control, right? So it's okay to focus on things that you can control. So if this is a need for you, if let's say you can't get your full 8 hours of sleep because you have kids, or because you're not living in like a stable household or anything like that, it's okay to not be able to get those hours of sleep because of those immediate things happening. So it's really important to be patient with yourself and be patient with your situation, and make sure that in this process of taking care of yourself, you're not hurting yourself in the process, saying like, man, I should do this, I should do that, being very critical of yourself. Because oftentimes we all fall under being critical of ourselves. We should do this, we should sleep more, we should whatever. And so it's just really important to just acknowledge things that you can't control. And that is a part of your self-care practice. Acknowledging that, yes, I can't control that there's a bunch of assignments coming at me. I can't control that. I can't control that I currently don't have some food in my fridge right now, and I can't feed my body in the way that I want to. But what I can control it depends on you. What I can control is maybe I can use some of the money I do have to buy like the little like necessities that I need, right? Maybe I can work my way in my entire day. Maybe I could have, if I can't have a full 8 hours of sleep, I can maybe take naps throughout the day. And so that's why I'm saying like it's very personal. Self-care is super personal, and it depends on your situation, right? So emotionally, so in relation to self-care, emotionally, you can, reflect on your values. And so this is about taking time to reflect on how we do things, what our values are, and how we want to live and relate with ourselves. And relate with others and relate with the world, right? And so we're definitely going to talk about that emotional aspect of self-care, and the different, and I would love to hear everyone's opinion on that as well as we move forward. There's definitely mental, right? There's a mental part of self-care as well. And so the perspective that I'm taking today is definitely, cultivating compassion. And this is when I say cultivating compassion, I mean cultivating compassion for yourself, right? Because like I said, we are our biggest critics. We're our biggest critics. And oftentimes we come at ourselves like, I should be working harder. I should be doing this and that. But a part of self-care is being compassionate, right? With yourself, and acknowledging that there are things, like I said before, that is out of your control. There are things that you cannot control, unfortunately. And what you could do is deal with the things that you can control, with the little things in your lives that you can control, and work your way through that. And so mentally, this is about cultivating compassion towards ourselves, grounding yourselves in everyday life, and just being. And like something that I actually forgot to mention earlier on in this workshop is that, sometimes, and a lot of you mentioned this as well, is that oftentimes self-care is seen as something independent. It's seen as something individual. While it very much is, a lot of times there is more to it, right? And so self-care can also be interdependent. It can be mutual. The relationships between ourself and the community, ourself and the family, ourself and friends. For example, so let's say part of your self-care practice can also be hanging out with your kids, can also be spending time with your kids, maybe playing with them and having that connection with your kids. That could be a part of your self-care practice. Yes, you are with your kids and you're helping and enjoying being with them, but self-care is also, you're benefiting from that too. If you love spending time with your kids, you're benefiting from that, right? And so what I mean is self-care could totally be interdependent. It could be mutual. It doesn't have to be just all about you. It can benefit other people as well, and as yourself. And so a lot of people, and this is like a good example. So a lot of people use the metaphor of self-care, like applying our oxygen mask. So you see on planes, and I remember when I was like younger going on a plane, I would always like, I didn't understand it until as I got older. On planes, they have like that sign, or sometimes when they do like the safety procedures, they say, when you have like the oxygen mask, make sure to put it on yourself before you put it on your child. And I always like, why? That doesn't make any sense. But when you think of it, it does, right? Because you have to apply the oxygen mask yourself in order for you to help other people, right? Imagine if you just focused on putting it on your child, you'll pass out, and then your child will pass out too, because that process of doing that, like you're hurting yourself, right? And so in order to help other people, sometimes you have to put that oxygen mask, and so then you can then put that oxygen mask on someone else, right? And so if we're not doing that, and like even in self-care, if we're not taking care of yourself, then we're not taking care of other people as well. You're not you're assisting you're assisting someone else to breathe, but then you're not breathing too. And so what I'm trying to say with that is that, like I said, self-care is very interdependent. While you're helping yourself, you're also helping other people in practicing self-care. And yeah, and like I said earlier on in this workshop, I'm not here to tell you how to take care of yourself. I'm not here to tell you you should do this, 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 this. And if you're not doing that, you're not practicing self-care. That is not what I'm here to do. I'm here to kind of support you in discovering what self-care means to you and what it means in your life, right? So this workshop, and as we're going to continue doing little activities, it's about more about self-acceptance, if that makes sense. So it's not about self-improvement, because like I said, we could be our biggest critics. We could be like, I need to do this, I need to do that, I should improve in this and that. That's like critiquing yourself, right? But it's more about self-acceptance, accepting your situation for what it is, and figuring out how you can practice self-care in what you have and what is easily accessible to you. And so yeah, I invite you, as we keep going on into this workshop, I invite you all to think about self-care and let go of anything that makes you feel that you're not doing enough, because in all of your situations, everyone is different. You are doing enough, and you are doing what you can with what you've been given, right? And so, yeah, the truth is, you're doing the best you can, and you're moving forward with that, right? And so I would love to hear as we go on, I would love to hear everyone's opinions and everyone's practice as well as we keep going forward. Okay, so kind of reiterating what I was saying before, is that self-care is all about you. So what works for one person may not work for another person, but that is what makes self-care just so extremely beautiful, so extremely great, is that it's very much unique to you. It's catered to you as a person and who you are, right? And so if there's some suggestions you hear in this workshop and you're like, I've tried that, it doesn't work, that's perfectly fine. Everyone is different, right? Everyone is different. Don't be discouraged. You are encouraged to just continue searching, for the things that work for you until you find the best fit and what helps you the best, right? Physically, mentally, even spiritually as well. I forgot to mention spiritually in the last slide. If anyone has any religious beliefs or any spiritual beliefs, that's also seen, practicing that is also seen as a form of self-care as well. And so for self-care, the thing is that it must be done consistently, right? Obviously, it depends on you and your schedule, but oftentimes to have a maximum impact, it has to be tried to do it consistently. And even if it's just 5 minutes a day, even 5 minutes, if you only have 5 minutes a day, then that is better than just, doing nothing, right? Because like I said, as you continue practicing self-care, whatever that looks like to you, it'll start having more of an impact in your life, right? An impact in your life, and it'll start helping you more navigate through these processes, right? And so over time, you'll see as you practice self-care, and maybe you're already practicing it, there's some things that it starts to help, with your mental health. It starts to help with your physical health as well, right? And yeah, and like I said, it's really just depending on you and depending on what fits for you. Okay, so let's get to the exercises. Okay, so this exercise is called personal values, the values exercise. So in practicing emotional self-care, it might be helpful exploring your personal values. Oftentimes, our values as human beings, as people in this life, our choices and decision-making process are all impacted by our values and who we are and who we identify as a person. And so our values are things we consider important in life, and it intersects with our multiple identities. So I believe if you attended the workshop about reflective thinking, Isabella talked about intersectionality and those intersecting identities. So everyone here has multiple identities in this life, as a mom, as a woman, as someone that's Hispanic, as someone that's, or even like a man, someone that's Hispanic, everyone just has intersecting identities. And so what values, thinking about your values as a person, it helps us slow down, right? And be intentional in how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to other people, especially when you find yourself in moments, in conflicting scenarios. Like, let's say if someone is coming at you and telling you to do things that perhaps is against your values as a human being, having these, if you think about these values beforehand, or if you're having it written down or anything like that, helps you really ground yourself and helps you really discover, like, okay, where do I stand on this specific issue, or where do I stand in whatever is happening right now. And so, yeah, it just really helps you find your voice. And so I invite you all to jot down all the values you can think of that you personally believe in. And so just an example here, you see, like, you can see it. So there's like success, there's growth, trust, honesty, excellence, balance. That was something mentioned before, consistency, accountability. There's plenty of values. And so I invite you all to just write them down, write down your values and what you believe in, what's important to you. And once you have it all written down, sort these values into groups. So what's like extremely important, what's like fairly important, and what's like, okay, it's like, oh, I can live, it's not as important. And so I invite you to all do that, and maybe take like a few minutes to write down your values and then rank them depending on like 1, 2, or 3, depending on what's most important to you. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. And we could definitely work on that together. I'll give you a few minutes. All right. If anyone is done, I invite you to share. If you'd like to share with the rest of us, that would be great.
Yes, Victoria. For me, I found good values like faith, accountability, quality, persistence, integrity. But I believe that if I have to categorize the importance of those values, so I will go for categorize all of those precious value on the most important category, as we can't live without one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of those values, uh, it 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 make the human is human. You know,
Mm-hmm.
without one of those values, I think we are not humans.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I think that's so true. Like if you guys can't figure out like this is number 1, this is 2 or 3, you could totally have them all under number 1 as well, because they could all be equally important to you as a person, right? So thank you so much for sharing, Dea. Anybody else?
Yeah, as my friend said, well, yeah, as from its name, it shows a value is value. So it's always valuable. So all values are a value, but it depends on everyone's own personality or how he categorizes it. So for me, I think as I categorize, as I said, all values are very, very, important. But as I categorize, I will categorize as first category as a honesty, personal growth, and truth, which is somehow, in my thinking. And a second category, like in a second, so I would say success, quality, service, and work-life balance. So for me, these 2 categories are somehow important, and it's somehow applied in my life. So it works for me. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And like, I love how you added the addition of like, it depends on, like your spirituality as well, right? And like your faith as well, right? And just being, oftentimes that influences, our values as people. It's very much integrated all together. So yeah, thank you. Sylvia?
Oh, okay. Me, I categorize it in this way: my mental health first. If my mental health is really straight and I'm happy, I'm fine. First of all, I first take care of myself. Then success will follow. If mentally not fine, of course, I will do things in a wrong way. This is then work, job and money, yeah, of course.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Sylvia. Yeah, that is so true. That is honestly so true. And I think it's even true for myself about like mental health. Like if mentally like I feel like I'm kind of like everywhere, like I'm just not focused, like it affects everything else. My work, my job, everything, my relationships, friendships, like it really does. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Tyler, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, and it's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. I was thinking about this, and I think two of the values that I think I care about the most end up being community and responsibility. And when I was thinking about this, I think the reason for that is because they both have to do with like communication, like talking to other people. So like a community is a group of people that you communicate with, and responsibility is the way that you respond to other people. And I find in a lot of ways, being able to do these things and like value these things a lot, and thinking about how self-care might connect to them also means that a lot of other things fall into place. Like when I'm honest with other people, it's because I communicate to them honestly. I tell them the thing. When I'm attempting to grow, usually I say things to myself like I'm going to do this, and that becomes really helpful for me thinking about like why I'm responsible for it. Well, it's because I'm responding myself. I'm telling myself I'm going to do this thing. So, pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Tyler. And I like how you highlighted the point, like the fact that like if once you have one value, it affects like the other value, right? Once you focus on these, it starts like, affecting everything else. So yeah, thank
Yeah, I
you.
was thinking about what Sylvia said about like taking care of one's mental health, and then success follows that. It's like, yeah, of course, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else would like to share?
Yes. So for me is just having faith in whatever it is that you're about to do. It's gonna be done, and honesty, speaking the truth, comes what may, and yeah, just being persistent in trying, even if you fall, you get up and go again. Yeah. Togetherness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and responsibility, and taking responsibility for your action.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Alicia. Like, I love how you incorporated multiple values, and it's like it all is significant to yourself, right? And this is all catered to yourself and what you deem as important. And thank you for doing that. Yeah, for incorporating all these values. It's really good. Mesfi?
Okay, actually, me and my wife were together. We try to classify this. Of course, hopefully we will have similar values because since we married, it's more than 10 years. So we try to classify in two groups, like important and fairly important. We don't have the low importance. And the important one, commitment, honesty, and trust, very important for us. And collaboration and achievement,
Mhm.
fairly important.
Mhm.
We classify like this. And actually the commitment, the honesty, trust, we see in life also. We try to experience in our life, work life, especially commitment. We have been working in several government offices, private offices.
Mhm.
So we value into two, very important and fairly important like this. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's like, I noticed a lot of the values, since you guys did it together, a lot of them is definitely values that one seeks in like a marriage as well, right? Or one seeks with their partner too. And so, yeah, it's great to see that being reflected. Yeah. Thank you so much. Anyone else have anything they want to add? Last minute thoughts? Okay. Going once, going twice. Okay. We'll move on to the next one. And so I know we have a few minutes, so I hope we can definitely do this and like the third one. But so I wanted to talk a bit about boundaries. So boundaries are limits that we set with ourselves and they're with other people as well. So it indicates what we find acceptable and unacceptable in our behavior towards ourselves and other people's behavior towards us. And so I wanted to do a quick boundaries exercise. So here I have it down here, kind of like the instructions. I said, write 5 to 10 boundaries that are important for you to keep with yourself for your own well-being. So for example, it can be something like something that seems insignificant, but could be significant for you. It could be like, I will brush my teeth every night. That could literally be a boundary for yourself, you know, or it could be, I will not work when I am sick, right? So since we have a bit of time, I would say maybe write down like, you don't have to write down 5 to 10. You can write down however many you want. It could be like 3, it can be 1, or whichever one. And then after you do that, I invite you to write boundaries 5 to 10 or 3 that are important for you in relationships. So for example, one could be, you know, I will address conflicts directly. If I have a conflict with someone, I will address it directly. That could be a type of boundary that you have. Or it'll be, you know, I will ask for what I need while knowing and accepting I might hear no as a response. So those are definitely like deep boundaries, but it could even be as easy as, you know, I will not accept people being aggressive towards me or people being rude towards me. So there are definitely different boundaries you can have. And so I invite you to write down. It can be however many. It could be less than 5 if you'd like. I'll just give you a minute to do that. Okay, does anyone, if you're done, does anyone want to share what type of boundaries they have with themselves and with other people?
Let me start. So actually, since I think there is time limitation, I just noted just 2 of them. As my personal, like for my personal value boundaries, I always, if I don't do exercise or workout, so it gets me sick. I mean, I cannot do other aspects of life better. And regarding others, I believe on respect in every relationship, either if they're friends, colleagues, husband and wife, any relationship. I believe on respect, and you should not limit that boundary of respect while you create a social network with others. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I think that's so true. I feel like we all have like a list of things and like I would, you know, love to expand on it. And hopefully we can, yeah, hopefully we can in like a future workshop or anything. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Zane? Oh.
For me, stay away. I try to stay away from negative people all the time. Surround myself with successful and positive people, and always look to the bright side. No matter what happens, there is always a good thing behind every situation. And I keep reminding myself the hard times make you a stronger person, and and the wiser one. Mistakes always, there is a lesson behind each mistake and each hard lesson.
Mhm.
And stay healthy as much as you can, like to drink water more, to drink less coffee, but it's true, I drink too much coffee. And I try to eat healthy food, vegetables more, fruits more than junk food.
Mhm.
And the last one is always have good intentions to everybody unless you discover the opposite. That's
Mhm.
it.
Wow. I really loved that last one. Yeah, I see someone put the clapping emoji. I love that. I really love it because it's so true.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Sylvia?
My personal boundaries, I learned to say no oftenly than before. Things I don't agree with, like I cannot be forced to do things I don't want to do anymore. Then another thing, respectively, I stop minding what other people think for me, because however much you do something amazing, there will be someone criticizing.
Yeah.
If you do wrong, of course, they'll be criticizing, but I respectively, I do mind my business and I do what's really important for me. So other people's boundaries, I always try to surround myself with positive people. The more you're the more you be with negativity, around negativity, you find yourself in that line, in that situation, like, I'm trying to, there is a word I want to use, but it has skipped my mind, but I hope you've understood the negative part.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. That is honestly, I think that's like one that like oftentimes a lot of people forget, like about your networks around you, like who are the type of people around you? How are they reacting? Are they negative, and how that impacts us and how that affects even our mental health too, right? So yeah, thank you so much.
Oh.
Miss Fee?
Okay, for me, the value in relation to myself is I will take shower every other day.
Mhm.
And in relation to other people, the boundary is I don't want to intervene among couples.
Oh, interesting. Nice. Okay. Is that it that you wrote down so far?
Pardon?
Oh, was there more? Sorry, I didn't want to
Yeah,
interrupt.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think yeah, that's really interesting. It goes back to the point that everyone has like personal experiences that affect their boundaries, right? They're personal or like relational, like it's all very unique to us. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, anyone else? Last minute. Mhm.
Okay, so staying out of trouble, respecting other people, space and and boundaries.
Mhm.
Stay away from negativity.
Mhm.
Choose your friends wisely.
Mhm.
Don't allow others to get in your mind, like to dictate how you live, what are your
Mhm.
whatever you're aspiring to.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with positive people and people that are going in the direction that you are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Perfect. Thank you so much, Alicia, for sharing. Yeah, I honestly, what stood out to me is like the respect part. Like respect is very common amongst all of our boundaries because it's so true. It's so extremely important to be respectful and to, have respect as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? I know there's a few more here about your boundaries. Okay. So I will move on to the last part. So let me see if I have any more slides. I don't. Okay, so this is the last slide I have here. So thank you everyone so much for sharing. Honestly, like as you can tell, and as we're sharing, it's interesting because we all have like around like similar boundaries and similar values as human beings. And that's why what I'm saying, how boundaries and values, it's like even self-care in general, it's very much, yes, about ourselves, but it's like very interesting how like it connects us to other people as well, and people who have like similar values and boundaries as well. And so self-care is very much like obviously about ourselves, but even those connections that we make as well, that is conducive to our journey and our growth. So yeah, thank you everyone so much for sharing that. And so just like as a last slide quickly, I wanted to talk a bit about a self-care plan. And so when I was in college, the reason, where I got all of these ideas actually was when I was in college, the professor had us do a self-care plan. And at first I was like, okay, this is a lot and I don't want to do it. But as I was doing it and I was writing it, I was like, oh my gosh, I found out so many things about myself, what I like, what I dislike, my self-care, my values, my boundaries. And it's like, once you sit down and like think about it, oftentimes you start realizing like, wow, that's the way I am. This is who I am. And then you start becoming more aware of that. And so I definitely encourage you to expand on those lists any time that when you have time, to expand on those lists and expand on in different ways as well. So this is just a little snippet. So a self-care plan is a space to express your self-care practice that you would like to put on a regular basis. So it's really important to be realistic, obviously, about the time and energy that you have. Along with your values and boundaries, here are more sections you can add to your plan. So of course, this is like an example. You can add so many other sections to your self-care plan, because it's all adjusted to what you believe is a part of your self-care, right? And so here's just like an example. So a part of the self-care plan, you could do like kind of like a daily schedule. So I know some of you mentioned things that you practice on the daily, like some personal boundaries. And so you could do a daily schedule for yourself. Okay, I'm going to work in 5 minutes to do some reflection, to do some journal writing, to paint my nails, for me, because I like painting my nails, sometimes paint my nails, or to, I don't know, fix my hair. I don't know, whatever is a part of your self-care. Yeah, that could be like a part of your daily practice, or like weekly, I will spend at least 10 minutes, but this is for me personally, like I love journal writing. So that helps my mental health a lot. So at least spend like 10 plus minutes journal writing. Monthly, only what you could do on a monthly basis. Hey, maybe I'll go on a shopping trip, buy something, a little something for myself. Like that could be a part of your self-care, right? Seasonally, yearly. So this is definitely, like I said, catered to yourself. And I truly believe when I made my own self-care plan, it was part of an assignment. But now to this day, I look back on it and I'm like, wow, this is actually so helpful when life is a little crazy, when life is so crazy and there's so many things happening. Looking back at like what you once wrote and what you're reflecting on really helps you ground yourself and find yourself again in this like world of crazy, basically. And so another part that you can add is, what do I do when a crisis hits? So it can be like what you're going to start doing and what you're going to stop doing, right? So when the crisis hits, what am I going to stop doing? Maybe address it and stop watching Netflix all the time. That's me, that's personally, right? Or when a big change happens, what are you going to start doing and what are you going to stop doing? So I'm going to stop for myself. I would say I will stop using other things as a distraction of this huge change that's happening, because I find myself doing that all the time, like distracting my mind, so then I won't address the big change, or when I won't address the crisis. And so, yeah, and like I said, this is all personal. Another part of your self-care plan is my support network. What does your support network look like? And it can be, your mom, your dad, or let's say a sister. It could be a friend. It could be a teacher. It could be a caseworker, or anyone, right? You could also write that down. So then in those moments where you feel like you can't even think anymore, just looking back at your self-care plan and looking at these topics really help you, make those connections, or even just ground yourself in general. And so that's the self-care plan. I strongly recommend, you sit yourself down one day and just briefly, it could be a little notes here and there of just about your values, your boundaries, what you know, little things that you want to do on a daily basis. And there's so many other sections that you could add. I will send you all in an email an example, and I'll send you all like different sections that you can add to your own self-care plan if you want to do that as well. But yeah, we've reached our time. I'm so sorry. I went 4 minutes over. But yeah, we reached our time now. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this workshop. I know I went 4 minutes over, but if anyone has any questions, I'm going to stop the recording.